Week 6, Module 1, Learning the 7 Covey Habits and Applying Them to Your Own Leadership Development, Self-Investment. This past week, you've accomplished lots of stuff as we've kind of gotten to the end of our habit conversation. You've thought long and hard about the deposits and withdrawals you make with other people in your personal and professional relationships, and how those deposits and withdrawals affect your overall ability to work together. You've thought what it takes effectively to collaborate with each other and that balance of withdrawals and that balance of deposits in the relationships that you have, especially as it relates to your own expanding your own sphere of influence in your profession. And you've learned to synergize. And in so doing, the questions are asking you, are you learning and doing and teaching those new habits? And I know the instructional team is just amazed at the level of your reflections and perceptions and commitments to really look at these habits in terms of a way of analyzing, critiquing, being diagnostic, and most important, being proactive about ways to increase your discipline, our discipline, at our own level of intra and interpersonal behavior. And as a result, we expect that you're starting to see ways that your sphere of influence is expanding and will expand as these habits become part of your reputation, part of the authenticity and experience other people have as they interact with you. In order to prepare for this week, you've completed 2 blog posts, 5 and 6, and you've completed your collegial coach response 4. We've talked about this maturity scale, whether it's a personal maturity. In this case, we've been talking about your leadership maturity of moving from where you're dependent on others to where you can be dependent on yourself, to where you can work effectively with others, from dependence to independence to interdependence, and the habits associated with building the foundation necessarily to create this upward mobility in the scale of your leadership development and maturity. We've already discussed deposits and withdrawals as it relates from moving from dependence to independence to interdependence in your leadership development, how you contribute to your own development as opposed to how you limit it and take that away, or how you contribute and support other people's involvement in the educational process of the school versus how other people have to have your back and support you, your withdrawals. First it was personal, and then it became interpersonal. And your personal victories consisted of the first 3 habits: being proactive, starting with the end in mind, and putting first things first. This notion of continuing for each of us to develop self-mastery, self-discipline, to move from being dependent to independent, where you can count on yourself, and as a result, other people can count on you. And then the public victories, moving from independence to interdependence, was about thinking win-win solutions that allow everybody to be satisfied with the results of how we move forward to improve our schools. This is a matter of assessing our own mindsets to think about winning in a different way than in order for me to win, I have to step on you or you have to lose, but instead thinking about mutual benefits, about making deposits in each other's bank account at the same time rather than simply withdrawing. Habit 5, we talked about seeking first to understand and then be understood, was the habit of improving our ability to listen empathetically to other people, to hear what they're trying to say, to hear their needs, to hear the issues that are most of concern to them, to hear what's on their to-do list, so we can then start looking for ways that we can match our needs and our to-do list and our priorities with another, so we can find common ground and move forward, to genuinely listen. And we talked about the fact that if we think win-win, if we're dependable, if we're independent, we think win-win, and we hear other people and encourage them to hear us, the opportunity to synergize increases, which was habit 6. This was the notion of maybe working together we get more than just working alone, that 1 plus 1 doesn't equal 2 anymore, it can equal 3, 4, or 5, instead of compromising where 1 plus 1 equals 1.5, or where somebody has to win at somebody else's expense, in which case 1 minus 1. So you have the habits. You have the habits for We have now discussed all the habits for personal victories and for interpersonal victories. You know them. Remember, we talked about at first a habit is knowledge, is skill, and is disposition. You now have the knowledge. What you need to do to be more effective in terms of your own personal space, and you know what you need to do. You have knowledge in terms of how to form better relationships with other people to expand your sphere of influence and your synergy. The difference between knowledge and skill is knowledge and habit is skill. Now you have to apply it. You have to want to apply it, and you have to apply it. And that self-discipline is something we have to push ourselves every day to develop and to perform, just like our decision to work out or not. On this notion of moving from dependent to independent to interdependent. So now what? Habit 7. So let's talk about the first 6 habits and introduce habit number 7. Stand up. You too, Amy. Stand up. Okay. Habit number 1. Be proactive. Habit number 2. Start with the end in mind. Habit number 3. Put first things first. Come on. Put first things first. Habit number 4. Think win-win. Habit number 5. Seek first to understand and then be understood. Habit number 6. Synergize. Habit number 7. Sharpen the saw. Sharpening the saw kind of goes off this old quote from Abe Lincoln. If I had 6 hours to chop a tree, I'd spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe. Sharpening the saw is this notion of once you've built this garden, once you've created and the flowers are coming up and the vegetables are coming up and your garden is lush, now you have to tend it. You know the skills and the habits and you're starting to perform them, but you have to reinvest in them. You have to sharpen the saw. Sharpening the saw is the habit of professional development. It's the habit of staying current. It's the habit of recommitting. It's the habit of looking at things again. It's the habit of not only looking at data and acting, but looking at data again and acting again. Habit number 7, sharpening the saw, is staying on the edge of innovation. It's staying on the edge of moving from good to great. Remember, Collins' book, Good to Great, is based on a very simple assumption. Good is the enemy of great. And so once you're there, great becomes good if you don't keep improving it. So sharpening the saw is the habit of continuing to reinvest in yourself. It's the habit of continuing to reinvest in the relationships you've developed with others. It's continuing to reinvest in the innovations and the programs that make your school successful, that expand your sphere of influence based on your effectiveness. Habit number 7 doesn't fit into the continuum of dependence to independence to interdependence, because habit number 7 works on all of those habits at the same time. It's always thinking about being proactive. It's always thinking about winning. It's always thinking about what do we need to do to hear each other and present cohesive and coherent arguments and discussions about what's important to us and our priorities. It's staying on top of things. It's sharpening the saw. It's being able to take down any of those trees or build them up. It's the investment in you. It's the investment in your organization. It's the investment in each of the habits and staying current with them. Sharpen the saw means preserving and enhancing the greatest asset you have, you. Building these habits from dependence to independence to interdependence isn't like a trip that you start out one place and you end up somewhere else. This is a continuous dynamic cycle of improvement, of recreating our leadership, of rediscovering our sphere of influence, of looking at what's important to us and investing more in it, deposit more. It's looking at the deposits we're making and making sure that they are well focused and identified, that we're starting with the end in mind. It's putting things in place that need to be put in place. It's making sure that we're not withdrawing more than we're depositing. And depositing means learning more, tending more, reading more, listening more, looking at data more. In fact, sharpening the saw is going into a credential program to become an educational leader. You've already invested in yourself. That's what sharpening the saw is. It is the habit that pulls all the other 6 habits together, because it says each of those habits is an engine, and they need continual energy and fuel in order to run effectively. They need to be oiled and greased. They need to be tuned up. And your job at habit 7 is to make sure all the pistons are firing. So we kind of move into week 7. We've completed the discussion of the 7 habits. And there's 8 and 9 we'll talk about in other courses and other books, but these are the habits to begin your refinement of this part of your leadership journey. So what's next for week 7? Think long and hard about how you collaborate. Think of new solutions. Think about long and hard about how synergy becomes part of the axe that you're going to sharpen. Implement your teaching plans with others. And you're going to complete your last summary blog for habits, Sharpen the Saw. Then, as a critical coach, you're going to post a response to your partner's blog 5 and 6. 5 is just mentioned here, but remember, you've just posted 2 blogs. You're going to critique and respond to both of them. And I want to talk a little bit about what's going to happen between week 7 and 8, so you get an idea of where this is going. Week 7, you have now turned in all your blogs. You have looked at all 7 habits. You've talked about your commitments, your discoveries, your reflections, your insights, where you're moving along. And at this point in time, as a colleague, you have read and been critical and provided great feedback on each other's blog. There's something in the profession called passing off, where you're done with a person, another person is better suited to take on the next experience, and you introduce it and say, I'm going to let so-and-so take over right now. It's called passing off. But there's a difference between passing off, where you just say, I'd like to introduce you to Joe, I hope you have a good afternoon, and really a new term, managing up. And managing up is when you pass somebody to another person, you provide your total confidence that that person's well situated to really take the person you're passing off to the next part of their journey. The difference between, oh, I'm too busy in the hallway, Mrs. Jones will help you answer the rest of your questions, to how do I help you understand Mrs. Jones is really greatly suited to answer the questions. I have tremendous confidence in her. She's the one that can help you with this information much better than me. She's prepared to do it. Not in a patronizing way, but in an authentic way, in a real way. Managing up is making you feel good about the person you're about to be introduced to. And in this assignment, you're going to manage up the person you've been collegially coaching for the last 7 weeks. So between weeks 7 and 8, you're going to collegially coach. The collegial coaches are going to manage up their partners. What's it going to look like? First, you're going to post your Sharpening the Saw blog for next week, and week 7, which is March 7th. Then, between week 7 and 8, the work turns to you as a collegial coach. And as a collegial coach, you're going to manage up your partner. Managing up is the process of demonstrating your knowledge, trust, and confidence in a colleague by introducing him or her to another. When in my introduction, I'm showing you I'm confident about this person, I trust this person, and I have knowledge about this person. You're letting the person you're introducing the person to know you're in good hands. It's like a great letter of introduction. It's like a great person that comes before somebody does a keynote and excites people that this is a keynote you're really going to want to hear. This is a person you're really going to want to meet. This is a person that you're really going to want to work with. This is a person that you should be very excited to spend time with. In this case, a colleague you have been coaching for the last 8 weeks is the person you're going to pass off to the rest of us. You have insight into your colleagues' 7 habits and other blogs you've read. You know what's important to them. You know the commitments they made and the progress they're making towards those commitments in terms of their own leadership development and journey. Now you will have the responsibility between weeks 7 and 8 to help expand their sphere of influence by introducing them to the rest of the group. You will pass them off to us. You will manage them up to us. And Bill will provide you next week a walkthrough of all the steps to a screencast that you'll do, a short screencast you'll do, that will provide a short but powerful statement of confidence in the person that you've been collegially coaching for the last 7 weeks. Managing up is a huge part of being a leader because it is part of distributing leadership to others, which many of you have written about in your leadership style, but you can't distribute leadership to others if the people that they're going to lead aren't confident in them, and they're going to look to you for that confidence. So in this case, you've been this person's collegial coach. Give us confidence in this knowledge and confidence and information about the leadership development of the person you've been coaching, so we have a confidence that they are prepared to expand their sphere of influence, and we're prepared to support that and be a part of that. Until then, model the learning that you want your community of learners to aspire to. Model the 7 habits.